Hello and welcome to the Unusual Dialogues, the classic offshoot of the Unusual Stories podcast. With me today is my dear friend Mike. Hello, Mike.
Hello, Wojciech. How you doing?
Wonderful. Wonderful to have you here. And before we start, guys, just a brief reminder, if this podcast is in any way form suitable for you and you find it entertaining, please click the follow button. It helps a lot. It puts it up. It makes other people more likely to check it out. And so you might remember, if you've been here for a while, that Mike actually had an episode with me back, I believe it was more or less 2 years ago now, maybe even 3. So, that's a fair amount of time passed before we've reconvened. And I've invited Mike today to join me on this audible adventure for the most part because he's been going through some major changes in life. And a big part of those changes was actually realizing how maybe Brexit has been affecting the way us, people who live in Britain, can choose or may choose or may not to live abroad. And so I brought Mike from his soon-to-be official new home, and we're going to have a little conversation about this post-Brexit personal drama, let's say, and a little bit about some job, and maybe we'll finish off with a brief discussion on how to make sure that while you're working full-time and maybe sometimes you're working yourself to the bone, you keep yourself in check with health and sort of self-discipline related struggles. I think this is something that our podcast is very much so about, and we oftentimes delve into those topics. So I'll dive straight into it. I'll let you introduce yourself to us briefly, Mike, and if you would like to get us straight to the first topic, right? So maybe paint a picture of how you've come to be moving wherever you're moving abroad, and maybe how was the experience so far? I know it's been a ride.
Thank you, Wojciech. Really happy to be here. Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed the last time I was on the podcast, and yeah, really excited to get into it today. I think for me, I've always enjoyed going to Europe and exploring. And then I met my partner a few years ago at a rock festival in Belgium, and for the last year and a half, I've been trying to move to Belgium because I was quite lucky in the fact that I was a digital nomad. For about 2 years, I was living in England before Brexit, and then I was working abroad. Sorry, working from home during Brexit. Wow. I've lost my train of thought. Might have to cut there, my friend. Okay, I'm starting again. I was working for a company called Telespazio, and then during COVID we went remote, and I worked remote there for a couple of years. And then my friend messaged me. He lived in the south of France. Once we came out of COVID, saying, "Would you like to live with me?" And I was like, it's a very incredible opportunity. So I became a digital nomad. I moved out of my place in England and I went to live in the south of France for a few years. At the same time, I did meet my partner, and I was living in the south of France, going to Belgium, but because of Brexit, my job wouldn't support me living abroad. So I had to move back from the south of France, which was a hard moment, I must admit. It was a beautiful place. And I was visiting my partner every 2 weeks because you can't spend any time in Europe without those constraints. Yes. So from living the high life of seeing the girlfriend and seeing my friend in the south of France, being in Belgium, to being back in the UK after having moved out of my apartment with nowhere to live. So a little bit of a downside there.
Wonderful. And yeah, I mean, that's exactly where we should probably ask the first question. You've mentioned that the company didn't really support you in terms of living abroad. And it is the case for many companies out there. And many countries as well have different restrictions. For example, in Poland, if you work for a company that does expect you to pay taxes in Poland, then you have a limit of somewhere like 6 months that you can be away from your country of residence. And I assume it's fairly similar for many companies, including those in UK. But let's jump into the interesting part of actually trying to figure out a way how to live there. Because obviously, for us Europeans, for a long time, and I'm a sort of a baby of that in a way, there was a mobility opportunity for everyone. And so, for example, I moved in to UK without a problem. Before Brexit, I could register here, work here, study here, stay here. And so obviously the idea, I assume, if there was any idea thought through about Brexit, was to sort of stop this influx of people coming in. But the interesting part, the funny part that I find quite relative and relevant is the idea that actually it made it more difficult for us Britons, let's say, to move abroad, because obviously if you take something away from a group of people, they are likely to take some rights away from you. It's like a tit for tat kind of thing. So how did you go about it? Because you've mentioned your girlfriend is living in Europe, and obviously at some point you've realized you cannot stay out there in your situation. You have to make a change.
Yeah, and it's been bloody difficult. Sorry, apologies for swearing. It's been an absolute nightmare. So I've been looking at how to move to Belgium for the last year and a half. My first option was to find a job in Belgium that will pay for me to work in Belgium and have the work visa. But I was not getting any answers from Belgian companies. And I did a little research, and if you're looking for a job in a say for example for a company, and the hiring people have got obviously a list of people, one of them is from a different country, and you have to worry about setting them up in the country, tax, visa, work rights, all of that. And then you've got the rest of them who are living in Belgium. I mean, there's no way you'd pick me over the 9 people or however many people have applied for that job. So you're already at a disadvantage. So I thought, okay, it's got to be a different way here. How are we going to do it? And so I spent a lot of money on lawyers to go, right, how do I get into the country? And I had 3 or 4 meetings with lawyers, Belgian lawyers, mind you, to say, all right, how do I get in the country? And they said, right, easy peasy. 2 steps. You go to the, because my partner is a Belgian national and she lives here. They said, very easy, you can do it in a day. And they said, right, you can apply to be legally cohabited, which is, it's not strange, but it's an odd legal framework. It's like the same thing as being married, but it's not at all. It's like you live in the same building, right? You live in the same place. So friends can do it. And, my friend who lives in the south of France offered to be legally cohabited with me so I could be European and I could move to Belgium, because he thought, that would work. That would skip it. But obviously it's a legal framework and not very useful in the end. So we thought, okay, me and my girlfriend, we're going to apply to this legally cohabited. And then once you're legally cohabited, then I can join her as a family reunification, like a husband or a child, like close family. And then I'll be able to become a Belgian citizen. Thought, fantastic. That's in one day. Perfect. Okay, great. So we turned up to the city council, the it's called a commune in French. It's like a town hall. And we said, right, here we go. Here's all my documents. So I spent hundreds of pounds getting the right documents as well, getting them translated into French. So I came with a big binder full of files, bang, slammed on the table. Here we go. And they said, okay, well, this is wrong. You don't need this, you don't need this, and you need this document. So the legal representation I paid for was wrong, which was really frustrating. So, okay, right, new legal representation, and then trying to find more documents. And it's when you realize that different countries work so differently. The Namur city where I'm trying to get wants a specific document from the embassy, the British embassy in Brussels, but the British embassy doesn't produce that document. So I'm calling and I'm ringing and I'm emailing both of them, trying to understand why they won't meet in the middle and get the right thing. I finally, yeah, exactly. So we're at the city hall, and I expected it to be for one day and done, like the lawyer said. And they said, no, it won't be one day. It will be 4 months minimum, up to 6 months. So I'm there. I'm planning. I've got, I'm ready to move house. I'm gonna move out in December, ready for Christmas, and we're still, was it May now? Still not there. So it's been that long. We've not progressed. It's crazy. But was it December? I got a confirmation saying yes, you can sign a document. Then it's fine. I thought, oh, great. You have to wait for 6 months. It's all sorted, all fine. We got an email from the lawyer who looks over all the documents and said, great, your documentation's good. And I was like, here we are. It's going to get accepted. And then I get an email saying, oh no, you need this document that I can't get from the embassy again. 2 weeks before the deadline. I'm just like, oh my goodness. So now I'm still ringing embassies every day. I'm ringing the Namur com line to try and talk to them. Of course, I'm trying to speak to them in French, and my French is very bad. And so sometimes they speak to me in English, and it's a bit of a nightmare. So still trying to get over that first hurdle at the moment.
Wow. I mean, where to even begin? It sounds, first of all, it doesn't sound so unreasonable, because in a way, the organizations are obviously working on different paperworks now. So the funny thing about not being united, whether it's a European Union or a free trade zone or whatever, is the fact that then you're sort of trying to link things that don't really link. And I'm very happy for you, and obviously you are on the right track, it seems, even though it might take some more time. And as you've mentioned before we started recording, you are already also there. So obviously there is a bit of a gray zone in a sense of you can still visit, no problem about that. And now it's only the waiting game of actually getting that legally cohabitant status, which is, it's funny, I thought the first thing you're gonna say is that we should just get married. I know this is the case for me and my girlfriend. If the quickest, the easiest way for her to be able to just move to UK right now would be if we just get married. That's for sure, because then even on a student visa, or even if you're an international on this sort of restricted work visa, marriage sort of overwrites all those legalities, because obviously you want people to live together so they can be a productive cell within the societal network, let's say. So before we jump to any other topics, I wanted to dive a bit deeper in the legality part. You started by saying that there are two options, and you said one option what would be the other? Am I right to say that the other would be the marriage, or is there some other route a person may take? Or was that the one by getting a job and being invited by a company? I don't know.
There is a third option, which I found, but it differs on each country. So if you're trying to get to a specific country, those rules will differ. I know the rules for Belgium. I know the rules for France are very different. For Belgium, there is an option to become I've forgotten the word for it now. Essentially, the company you work for will place you in that country as an extension of themselves, like for example, say it's my country for my company who's in ecology. It's to promote ecology and start making more business ideas. The idea is to like link businesses across countries, and that is quite a useful one as well. So yeah, there's 3 ways that I saw is marriage, essentially, or legal cohabitation. And you're right, if this doesn't work, probably gonna ask my girlfriend to marry me, and so we can finally live together. It's getting a job in that country and then paying for you to get all of that documentation, visa sorted, or it's that posting you to a different country. But again, it's so different country by country. Yeah, it's crazy. I also did try to get a French visitor visa for 6 months, so I could stay with a friend and then not work. But yeah, grasping at straws at that point, basically trying to find any way to get into the country.
Of course,
yeah.
But I mean that's not suitable long term, right? That's not a sustainable solution at all. The point of it all was for you to be able to maintain a working relationship, whether by working in UK or by switching to Belgium or wherever else, rather than becoming, I don't know, an unemployed visitor. That just sounds like a bum. As long as you're a tourist, it's okay. The moment your funds are out, you're a bum, a liability. So yeah, let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk a little bit about the job. So you've mentioned for me, and prior to this podcast, when we recorded our last one, we were actually talking about your job, which you did for quite a while, and I'm pretty sure that was, if it wasn't the same one that you've referred to as your previous job, it was definitely one up that street. And you've just sort of suggested that by now you're employed somewhere else. So maybe give us a little background, whatever you feel it's relevant. And then also, if you can just sort of address how would that work for you to be working for them while your residency is in Belgium? Because I do wonder if that's even like, yeah, on what basis is that legal?
Sure. So I guess we'll start with the sort of background to me on a career-wise. So I did a master's in remote sensing GIS, which is a strange bundle of words, but it essentially means remote Earth observation. So looking at the Earth from space using satellites, and geographical information systems, which is the computer-based sort of analysis and processing of those satellite images. So I was very lucky to straight out of uni work for this company called Telespazio. I was there for about 4 and a bit years. I joined as a information engineer or geoinformation engineer. So I was working a lot with radar satellites to sort of monitor the planet. And one of the ways you can use this technology is to monitor the ground deformation. So you can look at sort of a dam's walls buckling by a millimeter or 2 over a year. It's incredible technology. Also, I used to work with multi sort of Google Earth images to extract information about the natural landscape and for climate change, etc. I was also part of the team that monitored the quality of the reports coming from a satellite called Cryosat. So that's monitoring the ice thickness and distribution of ice across the Earth. And I was responsible for developing new processes for legacy satellites. So the old satellites now that have been dead and gone for a while, but the data's still there. And so as technology increases, this data goes through these periods of processing. So you have raw data, which is the baseline, and then the processing pipeline increases in complexity and speed. And so new data is available in those methods, and I developed some of the new ones for ERS-1, 2, and NVSAT for the remote sensing fans out there. So I did that for a number of years, and then I moved into flood management, flood monitoring in a geospatial sense, so looking at data. Worked there for a number of months, and then I got this new opportunity where I'm working now, which is ecological consultancy, using GIS and remote sensing as well. So there's something I didn't realize until I joined the company, was that in the UK, started this a few weeks ago. So for me, coming from GIS and satellites to ecology, it's a new learning opportunity, which is something I do appreciate as well, coming into these new sectors. But in the UK now, since 2021, well, around that sort of time, if you want to build on, say, farmland or a forest or whatever, the biodiversity has to increase by 10%. So that's the biodiversity of, say, woodland and grassland, and modified grassland. There's all these metrics that look at it. And if you can't do it, you have to buy these metrics elsewhere, which is a fantastic program. I'd not realized that was, so that's the entirety of England. If you want to build houses on a forest, you've got to build a forest. You've got to create a forest elsewhere. And so where I come in as a geospatial, say, expert, well, I don't know if I'm an expert, but GIS consultant and remote sensing consultant is to use these space-based capabilities and, like, so for example, Python processing to increase the efficiency of what's going on, and how do we leverage these new data sets to create more available resources for the ecologist. So for example, you've got a site, looking at one now because I'm on my work computer. It's an area in, I can't say where it is, confidentiality, but it's an area where they want to build some houses and there's no forest. So it means no forest. That's a very bad way to say it. You can see I'm not an ecologist. This is where I would like to go into it as well, is that different expertise in what's the word? I'm not an ecologist at all, whereas the ecologists don't have the skills I have at all.
So what you're saying, yeah, so what you're saying, just so I can maybe relate to you what you've said, and that way see if I understand, so maybe the listeners will be able to grasp it as well. It seems to me that by connecting these two skills, or these two knowledge bases, right? One, the technical one, what you've referred to, the remote sensing and GOS related technical skills, and then marrying it in a way with knowledge of biodiversity, ecology, and a theory behind that, what to place where, you can consult whether individuals, or although I do assume that the majority of your clients or the company's clients are quite big clients rather than, you know, a person with a small cabin wanting to build a cabin in the woods. It seems a little bit maybe more hipster that way. So they would come to you, or maybe you come to them, and offer figuring out a way that they can offset their potential, destruction of that area by developing more biodiverse area elsewhere. And so by marrying these two skill sets, you're able to basically figure out the equation for them that would work. So both sides are happy. We're not just building houses and cutting forests. We're doing both, just differently.
Nicely, yeah. This is just one of the ecological practices that's going on in the UK now, and you've hit it on the head. It's how can you provide this service to show people who are going to do it? Yes, that's correct. No, that's not correct. You can't build that many houses here. You can't get rid of that forest. It's really biodiverse. There are negatives to it, as there are with everything, but it's a good stable process to have in the UK. Yeah, 100%. As I don't know if you know this, the UK biodiversity is a lot less than the rest of Europe. Well, maybe that's a big brushstroke, but a lot of the woodland and forests in the UK were cut down, and I think the 1600s to the 1800s, when there's a lot of shipbuilding going on. And so, like, for example, in the Peak District, where I showed you some photos of me and our friend of me and our friend, sorry, have gone hiking. It's completely, there's no tree. There are some trees, but if you think back to hundreds of years ago, it would have been completely forested. It would have been one giant forest. And if you think about that, and you see it where there's a couple trees on that top of the hill, there's a little copse there. Yeah, there's a lot of biodiversity has been lost in the UK. So it's good. Is it enough? I'm not qualified to say, but it's definitely a good step.
No, wonderful. Yeah, and I mean, anything is better than nothing, right? I mean, in a sense of, especially if we're just waking up to care about these things, and in that space, it's better to work even with just a little than sort of hide our head in the sand. So let me just briefly pivot our conversation to your new work arrangement, because before we started chatting, you've mentioned that you are very happy right now. Obviously, let's just give a disclaimer. It's very easy to be happy at the beginning of any job. So there is obviously the rosy glasses, the tainted skies still roaming around. But you did point out to an important thing, which is also a big part of, I hope, of what the podcast touches upon, which is culture, and basically how people treat people, and how we manage to create a space where people feel like they can and want to make the most and be the best, rather they are coerced to do so. Which, obviously it's a way of pushing people to do things, but it's not necessarily too ethical or moral thing to do so. So, we don't have to go into any details whatsoever, but just since you pointed it out to me, I'm wondering, what do you have to say about that?
I'd say it's 2 points of view from me. Firstly, it's the work stress. I mean, I know it sounds bad, but there's good work stress and there's bad work stress. So for me, when it's bad, there's too much pressure. There's not enough time to do things, and no one's listening, or it's a bad environment. That's the bad work stress. A good work stress is, okay, we have a target. It's more a team focused. Personally, we need to get this bid done. We need to get this project done by this time. There's going to be stresses in every job, of course, 100%. And you do need to be on the ball. You need to be on the ball, and that comes with certain stresses. It's when that stress becomes too much and the expectations are unrealistic. That's when it becomes bad stress to me. Probably maybe not making too much sense, but I think maybe your listeners will will know the difference between, oh, do you know, I want to get this done before the weekend. You know, it's important to, I'm working many, many, many hours over what I'm paid to get this done, and it's still not what's required. I don't know if it made much sense there.
No. But
The main thing.
Yeah, no. Just to sort of, from my perspective at least, it seems to me that it's more, or with me, it is often about the motivation behind that. So if we are rushing towards a certain milestone, and the rush is peppered with a feeling of being rewarded and noticed and the collaboration, obviously it can be hard, you know. It doesn't mean that the road is going to be any easier, but because we are social creatures and because we are ultimately working with other people, so we do want to feel a part of that group, and a reasonably respected one, let's say. Because obviously, if we're talking entry-level jobs, let's not expect the CEO to be, you know, giving you a handshake every time you send an email. But the difference here is, though, from my perspective, that there are moments, or there are spaces, there are cultures where you are coerced, not rewarded, and not feeling like you're being heard, seen, appreciated while you're running to the same milestone. And so the one person is running with sort of a sweet and sour feeling of, okay, it's hard, but it's worth it. And I know it's worth it because others are signaling to me it is so. And the other person is running towards that goalpost with just the knowledge of, oh my God, I cannot not make it in time. And so if there is no pull, only push, if it's only fear, but not, what do you call it? Love? I don't know. Appreciation. Then it seems like it's much easier to just be grinded to a halt and to feel burned out.
Wholeheartedly with that. I've experienced both sides of the culture in a company. One side, it was, let's say, I don't say brutal, but it was very much, we expect a crazy workload all the time, crazy stress, no real reward for it at all. Nothing was ever good enough. You could spend, I spoke with colleagues that I was working with, and nothing was ever appreciated. Whereas on the other hand, I'll go back to that. And it gives you that sense of you're working, and there's no return. There's no satisfaction. There's no positive result from it. And it's grinding. Grinding is the exact word, because you're putting so much in, but you're not getting anything out. So you're literally being grinded away, like in a sandbone, right? You're putting all this in, and you're getting nothing back. And it's tough. It's super tough, because everyone wants to work well and do well and put the effort in. You want to work hard. You want to put the hours in and get a good result. Most people do. But when nothing comes back, yeah, it's a horrible experience. But on the flip side, when you have work environment or culture that rewards and nurtures you, it gives you that feeling of being supported, being in the group, being able to, in my field, I would say it enables me to develop new things and ideas that I wouldn't have done in a negative environment, because you're more free. You're free to develop things that you may not have been able to do. Ideas come in your head. You've got the time to really delve into ideas instead of being rushed. Because in my experience, if you're being rushed by a manager to get something done, you get it done. The result is the most important part. Whereas if you're supported and you're okay, we need to get this done, you think, well, we could do it this way, which is the easiest way, which would make my life easier. Or we could do it this other way, which requires more input, more time, more energy, but it would be better. And I want to do this better version because it would reflect good on me, reflect good on you. It would make the company better, it'd save us money, it'd be more efficient, etc., etc., etc. So that whole culture of of trusting, I think the word is trusting, to know that yes, it will take longer, but the end result will be better.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, from what I remember, and this is just theory from one of the modules I've done this semester, trust was like at the base of the pyramid of the reasons why teams make or break. And lack of trust is what breaks us ultimately. I mean, at the lowest scale, trust within a relationship is probably the biggest hindrance as well. So I can imagine that's relevant for jobs. So before we go into our third topic, Mike, because I'm mindful of our time, I wanted to just go back to my question from before, because I didn't feel like we've explored that. And, just briefly maybe, how is it possible right now that you can work and push for being able to live in Europe while you are employed for a company in UK? Is it because the company is international, so they are sort of switching you to the Belgium branch, or is there any other arrangement which I don't know about?
But there's a few ways to do it. Essentially, what I'm going to be doing is to be self-employed in the UK and then be taxed in Belgium. I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure. I need to hire a tax lawyer because it's complicated enough getting getting a visa, let alone all that sort of tax. But this is what the standard is if you work remotely away from the UK, depending on which country, you are self-employed in your own company, and then you're charged. You charge your time to this company, and then whatever country you're in, um, you pay their tax. I think I wouldn't take too much on that, but it changes on everything, and there's many other options. But essentially, the difficulties is just with tax. So if you get a tax lawyer, they'd be able to tell you a lot more than I can. But essentially, that's what I'm going to do.
Awesome. No, I mean I sort of expected that in a way that I've been before a consultant, so to speak. So as a self-employed registered, I did experience that when I went to Kuwait, right? So even though I was in Kuwait for over half a year, I managed to maintain the tax, let's say, status in UK by keeping the books UK based. So there is a choice for you for sure. And I just wondered, if there is any new. But yeah, guys, for anyone listening, this is merely two guys chatting away. Please don't quote us in any way that would sort of compromise you legally. Get people who are paid to do it to explain or educate yourself. I think there is a big power in doing that. And, especially from what Mike already shared with us, it seems to me that staying informed may save you some dollars, pounds, euros as well. So as long as you have time, effort, and motivation to do so, then it's great to stay informed on your own. So good luck with that. Now, I wanted to talk with you about the third topic, which we've briefly discussed before. And oftentimes when we call one another, it's sort of, it's life. We loop back and forth into some habits, and obviously our life has been through a constant change over the past years, especially since we left uni. Our life at uni was not necessarily what it is right now in many ways. And so I just wanted to explore the part which actually ties with what you said about motivation and feeling supported and nurtured is a good word here, that I've recently been on a few interviews for new jobs after uni, and in one of them in particular, a gentleman asked me, like, how will you make sure that you will not burn out as you do long days, long weeks, long months with us at the work. And I did talk with him briefly about my experience in Kuwait and sort of my morning and evening routines. It's a big word, sometimes they're more of a routine than others. Mornings are much easier for me to handle than evenings, for sure. And so I wanted to touch base with you on that. I know you've been through a lot of changes as well, which makes it quite difficult to stick to any given routine. So, hats off for all those out there who are managing to keep their morning or evening routines consistent in times of such a change. Like Mike, good luck doing that while you're traveling with a van for 3 days or whatever. But how are you finding it, and how are you, maybe any thoughts on, you've been in the corporate, let's say, or the working world now for 5 years, and how have you found the experiences? What do you do personally to keep yourself okay, to keep yourself, healthy and happy? Maybe something like that.
I think for me, the most difficult thing is not having a routine. When I was being a nomad, and traveling between England and Belgium, the best time of my life when I met my girlfriend and having those experiences and being with my partner, amazing time, absolutely loved it. But then coming home and then a complete change in location, who I'm with, feeling, everything was different. And you can try as hard as you like, but if you don't have a routine, I feel like you're pushing against a waterfall. A routine is it's a habit, right? There's a book, was it, I can't remember the name of it now, like 1,000 Habits, where it's building habits on habits on habits. And it had a huge impact on my life to try and do those small things to go for a little exercise in the morning, make the bed when you get up, etc. Just building on those tiny habits. I was speaking to my girlfriend today actually about, before we met, about how I used to play rugby quite religious, not the right word, but regularly. It was 3 times a week, but it wasn't like forcing yourself to go for a run. It was going to play. I know it sounds silly, like going to play, but it's that sort of, it doesn't sound silly here, but if there's a ball involved, football or rugby or cricket, it's not exercise, it's a game. And the end result is you've had a great time and you've done some exercise. And so I've realized, for me, my, key thing to do and stay healthy is to have a sport regularly. And so now that I'm more settled, and I will be in Belgium for forever, essentially, at this point, or if we move away around Europe or whatever, is to have that routine of, right, Monday we're going to go swimming because we both like swimming, and then Wednesday night is lacrosse night where we go play lacrosse, or it's that routine of doing it every week. Whereas you don't have a routine, you might go to the gym for 2 days one week, you might go play some, I don't know, checkers. I don't know. I'm pulling sports out of a hat now, but it's that routine of, right. Today is the day I do this, because if you go running once every 2 weeks for a year, or still over 25 runs you've been on. If you go once a week, 52 runs. I mean, I've never been once a week running in my life just for a run. I've played sports. I've played lacrosse. I've done rugby, but I've never been able to go for a run once a week in my life. And so I really see this, like, routine is such an important thing to me. If you can set up a good routine, it becomes a habit, becomes automatic, and then you're sorted.
Yeah, I just wrote down a few books, Atomic Habits by James Clear, or The Power of Habit, or Millionaire's Habits, I think is the third one that I also remember. So for you guys out there, I'll probably link below the Atomic Habits for sure. I think this is the one you referred to. And my friend Trenton also recently read it. And I mean, great book, definitely recommend. So I'll put the link below for you guys out there. It's interesting, you know, it's interesting that you took your answer towards I need or I want a routine or I love a routine. There's definitely studies done at this point that I've heard about. And please, guys, feel free to refer to Jordan Peterson's podcast for this one, actually. We love a ritual, we love a routine. We have so many rituals in our life we cannot imagine. It's the same way you brush your teeth every day. It's literally the same way. Like, film yourself brushing your teeth for a week. It's the same. It's very, very much so consistent. And it's consistent because you've stayed consistent. And so similarly to what Mike said, it's interesting that you've found for yourself that the sports and team sports are more like you than running. And that's completely relevant as well. I think there is no one size fits all. So unless we make a conscious effort of at least acknowledging what we like and dislike, instead of, you know, just lying in bed and watching Netflix, not thinking whether or not we like it, which is a good question to ask yourself, actually. We might not find that thing just yet, right? We can both give right now 7 different habits that, in our opinion, is the right way to go. But these might be completely irrelevant to the person listening to us, right? Especially if they're, for example, they don't like running or they don't like swimming, they can't swim maybe, they don't like reading and so forth. But yeah, I think it's really important, and it's interesting how you pointed out as well that as you move around this lack of routine, it's a bit of a blessing and a curse, right? When you're on the road and you're enjoying every little moment. But holidays for me are the most difficult time to keep my morning routine, for example, even the morning one, which I feel is the easiest to keep, because your mind is much more prone to do what you want it to do in the morning than in the evening, when we're spent and we just want to literally lie down and fall asleep, basically. So it's interesting how you pointed out that, and I think I remember when we had a conversation about that after you came back from France. I feel like there's also always a little bit of like a feeling of like an after travel hangover in a way, like a morale hangover related to this, you know, suddenly all these amazing things is the same thing every day, every time, at the same time. And you know, it can be a bit of a blues for sure. So yeah, guys, I guess a good invitation here from this point of view, especially as you work away, is ensure that you take care of yourself in the meantime, because yeah, like, our life consists of many little things done daily, most of it at least, and you would be surprised how quickly it goes before you realize that for whatever reason, you know, you slacked off and the year went past and you didn't run a mile or so. So now, Mike, as a final tradition, as you might remember, we always have like an invitation for the guest to leave to our audience some sort of invitation, a blessing, an advice, a funny anecdote, whatever you would like to leave before we finish off. So something maybe that we've not touched upon that you feel is relevant or resonating with you today.
Thank you, Wojciech. It's been a pleasure, as always. And this is something I've come across quite recently. It's seeing a friend of mine go from the worst situation I've seen him in to the best situation in 3 months. I would say it's self-care. No, maybe not the best way to say it, but he went from not really looking after himself to prioritizing that self-care. And now he is the fittest, like in when I say walking, gymming, the healthiest in terms of food. He is the most cheerful, the most positive I have ever seen him, and it is such a joy to see my friend go from such a, say sad, not doing anything, no joy in life, to taking that self-care journey really seriously. And now he is like the epitome of happiness and joyfulness and positivity. And I took something from this where I was like, yes, I will take a leaf from your book, my friend, and I will also prioritize that self-care because if you are feeling the best and you are happy and you are positive, that's going to have such an impact on every aspect of your life. I mean, personally, for me, I know that if I'm happy, I'm positive, I'm healthy, I'm a better person than if I'm sad and hungover and grumpy and ill. I'm much better when I'm happy. So for me, I'll if you take anything from what I'm just saying is, yeah, look after yourself. Try to look after yourself. We all like, well, so we all like a drink. I know me and Wojciech, we like a beer, we like a party, but it's also to look after yourself, and it's something I am trying to do. I know we all, we try and we fall up, but we get up and we continue to try to look after ourselves. So yeah.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah. And on that positive note, guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope that was helpful and inspiring and in any way informative. And so, yeah, have a wonderful week. Stay happy, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time.